Hi students, it's Miss Kendig here. Today we're going to work on IXL skill DD.5, how to make predictions using experimental probability. Now when we're dealing with probability, we need to remember that we're going to put the favorable over the possible or the total. So when we make our fractions, we're going to put the favorable outcome over the possible outcome. Now, we're going to use proportions today to help solve these problems. I want to let you know that you may use a calculator if the numbers are too big for you to do in your head. Let's look at number 1. At Daisy Donuts, 6 of the last 8 donuts sold had sprinkles. Considering this data, how many of the next 12 donuts sold would you expect to have sprinkles? Well, we know 6 donuts had sprinkles, and we're going to put that over 8 donuts that were sold, the total number amount sold. Now, we're going to set that equal to another fraction. This is how we're using proportions to help solve this problem. So it says, how many would you expect to have sprinkles? We don't know how many is going to have sprinkles. So since that's on the top in the first fraction, we're going to put an X in the second fraction. That's what we're going to be solving for. And how many were total donuts sold? Well, there were 12, and here we see this data right here, 12 total sold. So now what we want to do is we want to say we've got to cross multiply in order to solve this proportion. So we're going to say 8 times x is 8x, and 6 times 12, and that is 72. So now we have a one-step equation that we've got to solve. Now, what do we do in order to solve this equation? Well, we have to say 8 times x. Remember, when a letter and a number are squished together side by side, that means multiply. What is the inverse operation of multiplying by 8? It would be dividing by 8. So if we do it to one side, we've got to do it to the other. 8 over 8 gives me 1. Remember, I don't have to write 1x, I simply write x. And then 72 divided by 8 is 9. So what I can tell you is that if 12 donuts were sold, we can expect for 9 of them to have sprinkles. All right, let's look at number 2. Tasty Goodies Bakery recently sold 9 desserts, including 3 slices of cake. Considering this data, how many of the next 18 desserts sold should you expect to be slices of cake? All right, now remember we have to look at the data given. This is sold 9 desserts. This is our total. Remember, the total goes in the denominator slot. All right, so 3 of them were cake. So we've got to say, okay, 3 pieces of cake were sold over the total desserts sold were 9. 9 total. We've got to set that equal to another fraction. It says, considering this data, how many of the next 18 desserts sold? So that would be our total that would go on the bottom. 18, that would be our total. And then how many would you expect to be slices of cake? Well, we don't know. That's what we're solving for, the cake. So that has to go up at the top. So what we have is cake over total in the first fraction, and we must have cake over total in the second fraction. Do not mix those up. If you put the total on the bottom in the first fraction, the total has to be on the bottom in the second fraction. So you want them to have the same cake in the numerator spot and the total in the denominator spot. All right, now we can cross multiply. 9 times x is 9x, and then 3 times 18. Now you can use your calculator if you need to. 3 times 18 is 54. Now, here's a one-step equation. When a letter and a number are side by side, that means multiply. We have to do the inverse operation in order to solve an equation, so we want to divide. So the inverse is of multiplying by 9 would be dividing by 9. If we do it to one side, we do it to the other. So these two are going to cancel because 9 over 9 gives us 1. Instead of writing 1x, the 1 is understood, so we're simply going to write x. Now 54 divided by 9 would be 6, so we can expect that there will be 6 slices of cake if 18 desserts were sold. So 6 of them would be the cake. All right, let's keep moving forward. Number 3. Kendra flips a weighted coin 15 times and gets 5 tails. Based on experimental probability, how many of the next 12 flips should Kendra expect to come up tails? All right, so what we've got to do is we've got to think about this. All right, we know that we're flipping coins, right? We're flipping coins. So she does 15 total flips. 15 total flips, and 5 are tails. Those are important. So let's write 5 tails over 15 total. Now, when we set up our proportion, we've got to look and see how many total flips is she going to do for the second equation, or the second fraction, 12, a total of 12. So 12 total flips. And we want to know how many are going to come up tails. So we don't know how many are going to come up tails, and we put tails in the top. That's why our x is in the top in the second fraction. All right, now we can cross multiply. 15 times x is 15x equals, and then 5 times 12. 5 times 12 is 60. So 15x equals 60. That's our equation. This is a one-step equation where we are multiplying 15 and x. In order to do the inverse operation of multiplying by 15, we need to divide both sides by 15. When we do that, 15 over 15 gives us 1, so that's simply x. And 60 divided by 15 is 4. So 4 would be tails. 4 would be tails if she flipped the coin 12 more times. Let's look at number 4. Stanley is playing darts. So far, he has hit the bullseye 5 times and missed the bullseye 15 times. Considering this data, how many bullseyes would you expect Stanley to get during his next 16 tosses? Okay, so he hit the bullseye 5 times and missed the bullseye 15 times. So now this is a little bit different. We have to actually look and see how many times he threw the darts, right? So if he hit it 5 times and he missed 15, we have to add 5 plus 15. So that means he threw the darts 20 times. So he threw the darts 20 times. So don't let that confuse you now, because he hit the bullseye 5 times and missed 15. So we have to add those two together to get our total times that he threw darts. So he threw the darts a total of 20 times. So we want to see how many bullseyes we would expect him to get. Okay, so how many did he get? Well, he hit the bullseye 5 times, so that's going to be our numerator. 5 hits over 20 total throws, right? 5 hits over 20 total throws. Then we have to set that equal to, he's going to toss his next total throws, or total tosses will be 16. So 16 total. Okay, and how many times is he going to hit the bullseye? We don't know, so we're going to put a variable in that place, which is x. So now that we have hits over total in the first fraction and hits over total in the second, we can cross multiply. 20 times x is 20x, and 5 times 16. You can use your calculator. 5 times 16 is 80. Now, this is a one-step equation in which we are multiplying 20 times x. The inverse operation of multiplying by 20 would be dividing by 20. If we do it to one side of the equation, we have to do it to the other. So x equals 80 divided by 20 is 4. So he would have 4 hits, 4 darts hit the bullseye if he threw 16 more darts. All right, let's look at number 5. So far on its tour, a band sold out 2 shows and did not sell out the other 4 shows. Considering this data, how many of the band's next 18 shows would you expect to be sold out? Now, just like before in number 4, we have 2 shows that were sold out and 4 shows that were not. They did not sell out, okay? So we have to add 2 shows plus the 4 that did not sell out. So that's a total of 6 shows. So 2 shows sold out, 4 didn't. Add those together, we get a total of 6. Now, what are they wanting us to look at? They're wanting us to look at how many shows do we expect to be sold out. So how many were sold out? That will be 2, so that we know that that 2 is going to be our numerator. So we got 2 sold out shows out of 6 total shows. We've got to set that equal to the next 18 shows. That would be the total for the next fraction. So 18 total would go in the bottom, and we don't know how many are going to be sold out. That's what we're trying to solve for. So now that we have our fractions set equal to one another, that, remember, doing that is called a proportion. We can cross multiply. 6 times x is 6x equals 2 times 18 is 36. All right, let's draw a line there to separate the two sides of the equation. On one side, we have 6 times x, which we're multiplying by 6. The inverse of that is dividing by 6, so we have to divide by 6 on the left and divide by 6 on the right. Those two 6's cancel out, and we have x equals, now 36 divided by 6, that is 6. So we know that 6 shows will be sold out if they play 18 more shows. That's the probability. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one, number 6. Okay, number 6 says, at an art camp, students must specialize in one artistic medium. Last summer, 15 students specialized in drawing, while 21 students specialized in other areas. Considering this data, how many of the next 96 students to sign up for camp this summer should you expect to specialize in drawing? All right, so we've got to add, just like we did on 4 and 5, we've got to take those that were specializing in drawing. So there were 15 students specialized in drawing. So we got to say 15 students did the drawing plus 21 students, they did other areas. So when we say 15 plus 21, we're going to get 36. So a total of 36 students were at the camp. Okay? Now, that's our total, that's our denominator spot of the first fraction. So it says, how many would you expect to specialize in drawing? So we got to say, okay, 15 did drawing, that's our numerator. So 15 did drawing over 36 total. We need to set that fraction equal to the total number of students. So the next 96 students, so that's the total. 96 is the total. The total goes on the bottom in the denominator spot. And how many should we expect to specialize in drawing? We don't know, so that's our x. Now that we have the proportion, we can cross multiply. 36 times x is 36x. 15 times 96. Now you'll need your calculator for this one. 1440. Okay, let's draw a line. Now 36 is being multiplied by x because when a letter and a number are squished together side by side, that means multiply. The inverse operation of multiplying is dividing, so we need to divide both sides by 36. All right, so x equals, now 1440 divided by 36 is 40. So 40 students are expected to specialize in drawing if 96 students sign up. That's the probability. All right. Let's look at number 7. It's a little bit different. During a game, a spinner landed on several different colors 4 on purple, 8 on yellow, 4 on green. Considering this data, how many of the next 22 spins should you expect to land on yellow? Okay, so that's pertinent information there. Now, what we have to do is we have to start and see how many times was the spinner spun. So we've got to say, okay, we've got to add all of these. Okay, so 4 plus 8 plus 4. Okay, 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 4 is 16. So there are 16 total spins. 16 total spins. And it says, how many would you expect to land on yellow? Well, how many did land on yellow? 8. So 8 landed on yellow, and this is our first fraction, over 16 total spins. Now, how many of the next 22 spins, so that's going to be our total, that goes on the bottom, 22 total, would you expect to land on yellow? Well, we don't know how many are going to be yellow, so that's where we're going to put our X on the top. Now we can cross multiply since we have this proportion set up. 16 times X is 16X. And we're going to set that equal to 8 times 22. And you can use your calculator for 8 times 22. You'll get 176. All right, now as we do this, we want to see what we're going to have to do in order to solve this equation. We need to do the inverse of what's being done. Right now, 16 is being multiplied by x, so we have to divide by 16 in order to get rid of that and to isolate the variable. X equals 176 divided by 16 is 11. So we can expect for the spinner to land on yellow 11 times if there are 22 spins done. All right, let's look at number 8. Yesterday, the children at Jane's preschool chose to pursue various activities. 1 wrote a story, 1 played with stuffed animals, 5 played with stuffed animals, 3 read books, and 4 played a math game. Based on past data, if 24 preschoolers are at school today, how many should you expect to play with stuffed animals? All right, just like before, we've got to add these together to get the total number of students. So we've got to say 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So there are 10 total students in this scenario. All right, so now how many of those 10 played with stuffed animals? How many of those 10 played with stuffed animals? Okay, so we've got to say 5 played with stuffed animals out of 10 total students. And we've got to set that equal to, it's asking us if 24 preschoolers are at school today. So the total number of preschoolers is going to go on the bottom, 24 total. And then they want to know how many are going to play with stuffed animals. Well, we don't know. That's where our x comes in. 10 times x is 10x. And 5 times 24 is 120. Okay, so now we can put our line there to divide our equation. 10 is being multiplied by x. The opposite of multiplying by 10 is dividing by 10. That's what we're going to do to both sides in order to isolate that variable. 10 over 10 is 1. It just leaves us with an x. We don't have to write 1x, for 1 is understood. 120 divided by 10 is 12. So we know that of the 24 students, 12 students will play with stuffed animals. Well, let me write that correctly. 12 students will play with stuffed animals. Now you are ready to go and do your IXL skill DD.5.